Thank you for joining us again today. I'm Alistair.
I'm Douglas.
And this is your guide to the Munros of Loch Lomond. Whether you are just starting out on your Munro bagging adventure, or whether you're travelling from further afield, hopefully this guide will help you in deciding which Munros you wish to tackle if you find yourself in the Loch Lomond area or are even starting from the Greater Glasgow area. These Munros are easily accessible, with the furthest start point being just under a 90-minute drive from the centre of Glasgow. These Munros provide stunning views in one of Scotland's well-known areas, and we have split these into 3 sections to make it easier to digest. First of all, we have Ben Lomond, followed by the Arrochar Alps, and lastly we have the group of Munros which lie south of Crianlarich.
Thanks, Alistair. So for each of these hikes, what we're going to try and do is provide you with the key information that we think you need in order to make it a successful hike and day out. So we'll look at things like parking, how to get access to that parking. We'll then talk about the actual stats of the hike itself, so the distance and ascent for it and the recommended time that it may take. And then we'll finish off with some general observations and tips that we found when we've been out doing these hikes ourselves.
Ben Lomond. Ben Lomond is the most southerly Munro and can be visible from Glasgow on clear days. It is situated on the east side of Loch Lomond, with the start of the walk being River Dennin. There is ample parking at the start point, however it does cost a small charge to park here. Access to the car park is through a narrow road which takes you from Balmaha northwards and has passing places. There is no public transport to the start point, apart from a ferry which leaves from Tarbet on the west side of Loch Lomond. However, timings for this could prove challenging to complete the Munro in a single day. There is public toilets at the start point and ample picnic areas. The route is about 12 kilometres long, with about 990 metres of ascent. You do have the choice of doing an out and back, or you can take in the Tarmican Ridge on a more circular route.
Beinn Narnain and Ben Ime. This pair of Munros has a hike distance of around 13.5 kilometres with an ascent of 1,325 metres and will take roughly in the region of 6 to 7 hours in summer conditions. The hike itself starts at Arrochar in the big car parks you've got by Loch Long. Now, these car parks are quite expensive. To park there for a full day, I think, is in the region of about £9 at the time of writing, so it's not the cheapest, and you need to prepay in advance as well, so you need to figure out how long you're going to be there for. There are some limited facilities as well. They've recently put in some portaloos, perhaps to justify the cost of the car park. There is an EV charging point as well, and you can get a bus to the start point given its proximity to Arrochar. There are various routes to climb this pair of Munros. The sort of direct route up Beinn Narnain is quite tough and a bit scrambly at points. The route on to Ben Ime is then a bit of a more straightforward walk along sort of grassy slopes, and in fact Ben Ime is the tallest of the Arrochar Alps, so you can get quite stunning views from up the top of it. There are some alternate routes you can do as well if you want to do a slightly different approach. You could just do these Munros individually as well if you wanted to, or if you wanted to make it an even longer walk, then you could potentially add in the cobbler as well, which is a corbett.
Ben Vane. Ben Vane is the third shortest Munro, However, don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. There is still 930 metres of ascent on this 11km route. The start point for this is Inveruglas on the west coast of Loch Lomond. There are parking charges for this car park, however there are toilets available. You can also get a bus to the start point, and there are EV charging points available. The initial part of the route is taken in via a tarmac path, making for good conditions underfoot. After leaving that path behind, the path steepens considerably, although it is over a well-made path for a short while, which has some steps, however becomes boggy very quickly. Later on, as you get higher, there is a small scramble just prior to the summit. If you wish to extend your day, you can add in a trip to the Loch Lomond Dam, or even take in Ben Vorlich for a much longer day.
Beinn Vorlich. Beinn Vorlich actually shares the same starting point as Beinn Vane, so everything that Alistair has just told you about that applies to this as well. Now obviously the hike itself is a bit different, so in terms of the stats for this one, we've got 13.5 kilometres of distance and 945 metres of ascent, which should take somewhere in the region of 5 to 6.5 hours. In terms of the walk itself, you've got quite an easy start to begin with up the Loch Lomond Dam road, before you then head up a pretty steep ascent up the hillside itself, although it is quite a well made path and kind of resembles a staircase at certain points. It's that steep, but it's a good walk up there. Once you reach the summit plateau, you should bear in mind that the true summit itself is actually a few hundred metres beyond the trig point. Certainly seen quite a lot of people stop at the trig point, take their photos and turn around, so yeah, make sure that you actually go on to the summit cairn, which is beyond that. Beinn Chabhair. So whilst Beinn Chabhair might be one of the smaller Munros, reaching in at only 933 metres, it is actually quite a rugged peak, being quite rocky at the top of it. So it's still a fine walk even though it is on that smaller side of things. In terms of the distance, you've got around 13 kilometres and then 948 metres of ascent. So it should take somewhere in the region of 5 to 6.5 hours if conditions are good. The start of this walk is at Narnain, however parking is not the most straightforward here. You've got a couple of options. You can either park at the Drovers Inn or at the Ben Glass Farm campsite. However, both of these do attract a fee, so bear that in mind. You need to get in touch with the respective place and check how much they're charging for that. I believe the Drovers, if you do go in and have a meal afterwards, you will get your parking fee back, so that could be a good option. And there is also a bus to the Drovers Inn if you don't have a car available. This particular walk is renowned for being very boggy, so potentially one that you want to leave to sort of drier summer conditions. It does, however, offer some fantastic views and can typically be quieter than some of the neighbouring Munros. I guess because it is just that wee bit more awkward to actually find somewhere good to park for the start of it.
And Caisteal and Ben A'Chroin. The start point for this walk is situated just south of Cruach Àrdrain in a lay-by of the A82. There is no cost for parking here, however parking is limited, with there being no facilities and no EV charging point here. There is no public transport to the lay-by, however most main bus routes pass the lay-by, so if you can get your driver to stop, he may be able to let you off there. This route is about 14 kilometres long, with the ascent being 1045 metres. It should be noted that the return route is notoriously boggy, so make sure to pack those gaiters just in case it is a bit wet.
Cruach Àrdrain and Ben Tulaichean. This pair of Monros is typically climbed from the south, as it means you don't have to go back over any of the peaks. And to do this you would start at Loch Lomond, which is near Balchwydder. The distance for the hike itself is 12.5 kilometres and 1019 metres of ascent, and should take somewhere in the region of 6 to 7 hours. The car parking has no fee, but there are no facilities really to speak of other than a small shelter, and there aren't a huge amount of parking spaces either. These Monros are quite popular, so the car parking can fill up quite quickly, so I would either arrive early or perhaps go midweek if you don't want to end up with nowhere to park. And there are no EV charging points at the car park here. Alternatively, you can do this pair of hills from the same starting point as Caisteal and Ben A'Chroin that Alistair has just described, although that will make for a bit of a longer walk with more ascent, so ultimately it depends which route you fancy. If you are starting from the recommended route in Loch Lomond, you can actually also visit Rob Roy McGregor's grave, which is located in Balchwydder, and his first home is also nearby.
Beinn More and Stob Binnein. The start point for this walk is east of Craignalara, near to Ben More Farm. If you feel confident, you can park at the side of the road. However, there is also a lay-by which is approximately 0.8 kilometres east along the road. There is no fee to charge at either. However, there are no facilities and no EV charging points at either place. The walk is approximately 12 kilometres in length with an ascent of 1,335 metres, proving to be a fairly long day out. The initial ascent up Beinn More is very steep and can be off-putting for beginners. However, the view from the top is absolutely spectacular. And it should also be noted there are no taller mountains south of Beinn More in Britain.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed our Highland Hikers guide to the Monros in the Loch Lomond region, and this may help you decide where you want to go and get the most out of your hike. What's worth pointing out is that these hikes were primarily filmed in summer conditions. If you were to do these in winter, the conditions would vary quite a bit, and each of the hikes would probably take quite a bit longer than we've described. If you are interested in checking out the full videos for each of these hikes, we will put the links in the description below, and we will also create a playlist for this so you can watch through all of them if you want to. So thank you for watching, and we will see you on another hike.